Hi and welcome to today's episode, in which I show you how to make a deceptively simple yet show-stopping dinner, the Confit Byaldi. I was on Reddit a couple of weeks ago and someone had posted a picture of the ratatouille that they made from the Ratatouille movie. If you haven't seen the Disney film, I don't know if I'm going to put any pictures or anything in here because I really don't want to cease and desist off Disney. But the plot is a little rat is in a Parisian kitchen and he ends up in the hat of a chef. And kind of controls the chef and makes incredible dishes. There's a food critic that all of the chefs are scared of, and Remy, I think his name is, really wants to impress this guy. Towards the end of the film, Remy makes the critic a ratatouille, but kind of elevates the dish, blows the critic's socks off, gets all the laudits, blah, 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 you know, the end. The picture that the Redditor had posted, all of the veggies thinly sliced, and it's kind of arranged, the slices are vertical in concentric circles, and it just looks incredible. I got curious, so I started looking through the comments, and apparently the dish is actually called a Confit Byaldi. If you've never had ratatouille before, it's a very simple French dish made typically with tomatoes, peppers, courgettes, aubergines, that kind of thing. When I decided on doing the dish, I thought, what can I serve that with? And I thought, maybe a potato dish should be nice on the side. And then I started thinking, what kind of potatoes? Because I've done mash, I've done Hasselbacks, I've done a fair few potato things at this point. Sat there mulling for a while and then suddenly thought, ooh, what if the potatoes were underneath? The plan is to do a layer of finely sliced potatoes at the bottom and then put the rest of it on top. The juices from the vegetables and the sauce that I'm going to put on the base, that will seep into the potatoes and add lots of extra delicious flavour. If you'd like lots more plant-based recipe ideas, like this video and subscribe to the channel. If you tap the bell icon, you'll get an alert as soon as a new one's published. If you'd like some extra content, bit of community chat features and that kind of thing, I do have a Patreon. I'll link to it down in the description for you. Like these people, getting their financial support every month is probably the only reason I can keep the channel going, because food is stupid at the moment. The costs of ingredients is just crazy. So having a little group of people that supports what I'm trying to do and is also there in the chat recommending great films and TV. As I was sitting trying to figure out how to make this thing, I thought if I put raw potato on the bottom and then raw veg on top, it might mess around with the cooking of the potato. It might not be as delicious as it could be. So I've already done this part and I've put it in the oven already. I took 5 red potatoes, peeled them, and then set up a bowl of cold water, put the mandolin over the top of it, and then slice the potatoes straight into the water. There's a couple of reasons why you should soak potatoes. Partly it stops them discolouring, because as soon as you start cutting potatoes, it will oxidise, it goes brown, and it changes the appearance and slightly changes the flavour as well. Soaking them also rinses away the potato starch. From what I can see online, the starch can stop the potatoes cooking evenly, and it gets very gummy. If you've ever sliced a load of potatoes and your hands feel a bit slimy and weird, that's the potato starch that's doing it. Once I'd peeled the potatoes and sliced them into the bowl, I went in with my hands, made sure to try and separate each slice as best I could. And then I poured all of the liquid away. As I tipped the bowl, I was like, I should maybe have filmed this, but I didn't. And then I just replaced the water, I think 2 or 3 times. You want the water to be fairly clear. And then you know you've got plenty of the starch taken care of. So let's pull out the potatoes and have a look. At this point, I think I've probably had them in about an hour or so. I started at 150 and then increase it to 160. Here is the potatoes. I'll talk you through how I did it in a second. Just want to check how things are looking. They're looking amazing is how they're looking. So I'm just going to pop my probe in, just partly to see what the texture is and to see the temperature. Yeah, so we're at like 95 degrees C, which is 208 Fahrenheit. As I put the probe in, it feels really soft. I've lined a 9-inch cake tin with greaseproof paper, and then I started arranging the potatoes in concentric circles in a single layer. Then I brushed on melted vegan butter, put another layer on, and then every kind of 2 or 3 layers I also put in some of this Camembert style vegan cheese just to give a bit of extra flavour. At this stage you could even take it out the oven, let it cool down, and then take slices of it and fry those off so you get a nice golden crust on the outside, and then you've got really lovely side dish in its own right. And after 20 minutes I pressed everything down with the potato masher like this. As the potatoes are raw, there was lots of gaps everywhere, so then as they start softening and cooking down, I just wanted to pack everything in and compress it. I didn't put any salt on the potatoes. I did wonder if I should, but decided not to in the end. It has got a little bit of saltiness from the cheese and a tiny bit from the butter, but I think having a fairly neutral flavour at the bottom will pair really nicely with kind of quite deep flavours on the top. So I'm going to tuck this back in the oven. I found a recipe for Confit Byaldi on the spruceeats.com. I'll link to that original recipe in the description. Their recipe and a couple of other ones that I saw as well use a piperade sauce. It's a sauce made from peppers, tomatoes, garlic and that kind of thing. And you put that at the bottom. I'm assuming they do it that way to get the pepper flavour into the dish, because otherwise peppers are very difficult to cut into a nice round the way that the other ingredients are going to be. I'm somewhat modifying it a little bit, just partly for speed, and just so I don't have to mess around with lots of different pans. In this tub here, I roasted off a red, a yellow and an orange bell pepper. Squirted some oil on them, put them in the air fryer for 20 minutes at 200 degrees C, which is about 400 Fahrenheit, and you just leave them in there until it finishes. You want to then put them in something that will fit them and will seal tight with a lid. And you just let them cool down in there and the skin will just lift off. Then peel all of the skin off as best you can. I then pulled the top out, scooped all the seeds out, tried to reserve as much of the juice as I could. So that's a really nice thing just to keep in your fridge. You could put put the flesh in a jar, cover it with olive oil, and they'll keep probably a week or so, if not longer. I'm going to kind of heat everything up, then I can blend it down into a smooth sauce, because it doesn't need cooking separately, in my opinion, because it's going to be baked in the oven for 2.5 hours, 2.25, I think, something like that. So it's not that we're trying to cook anything, but I think bringing everything up to heat will start the flavours kind of infusing. Feel free to use whatever ingredients you like in here. Some of them I've chosen because I've had to adapt. So it's going to have the roast peppers. Then I thought I had tomato puree in the fridge, like tomato paste, like the deep concentrate, and I don't. I realised 10 minutes ago. So I'm going to use some of this sun-dried tomato powder. I did think about putting in a can of tomatoes, but it's going to make it even wetter than it is already going to be. And I don't necessarily want that. So I think just use this, or you could use sun-dried tomatoes. Or the other option is to use canned tomatoes and just let it simmer away on the stove for a while, and that will evaporate off a lot of the liquid. I haven't got the time for that. I'm at a potluck dinner this evening. I'm going to use some fresh thyme for a bit of aromatic flavour. I'll chuck in some fresh garlic. These are tiny cloves, so I'm not sure how much I'm going to use yet. I picked up this in the supermarket yesterday. It's a black garlic. This is garlic that's been fermented. So that's how they look. And the flavour of it, it's a little bit garlicky, but it's very umami, a bit funky, a little bit licorice-like, almost like molasses, that kind of flavour. It's really, really tasty. So I think I'll put a few cloves of this in as well. So I'll take you over to the saucepan. I'm just using fairly gentle heat on here. So I'm going to do maybe a tablespoon of olive oil. I've ended up doing that whole garlic, say maybe half a tablespoon. I just want to cook this quite gently. And in fact, I might even just take the pan off and let the heat of the oil cook it. And then I'm just going to pick off the thyme leaves. Got around a tablespoon or so of the thyme. So let that cook down over a very low heat. I've got it on 3, mine goes up to 9. So here is the black garlic. It's very sticky, this stuff, but you can see the texture is kind of, very squidgy. I think I might break the pieces down a touch. So the garlic's got a little bit of colour on there. And I'm going to add maybe half a teaspoon of black pepper, well, maybe quarter. Do a good pinch of salt. Quarter teaspoon, maybe a little bit more. 2 tablespoons of the sun-dried tomato powder. I bought the powder to make the polenta crisps, which makes a very nice chip flavouring. And then I'll drop the garlic in. Then I'm going to tear the peppers in. I'm not sure how much of the juice I'm going to put in yet, because I don't want it a very runny sauce. Well, I might pour a little bit in because the powders are sticking. I think I will put all of that juice in actually. There's not tons. And then I'm going to go in and blend it up. Just going to check the flavour. Ooh, yum. That's going to be just an incredible sauce on its own, like just on pasta or something. Fairly smooth. So I think I'll just turn the heat off, but I'll leave the pan on the burner as it cools down. Okie doke, next stage. I'm going to pull the potatoes out and they can just be sat on the stove. I've got a slight concern that the potatoes at the edge are going to get very dark in the oven. Well, I've dropped the heat to 150 and I might have another look at the recipe because apparently it needs to cook for 2.5 hours. But 2.5 hours feels like a very long time for vegetables. The next stage is to slice all of the veg. I've got 3 plates that I think I'm going to put the veggies on and then assembling. I can just keep things kind of orderly. I bought 4 courgettes, zucchini if you're in the States. I don't think I'm going to need nearly this amount, but I thought better to buy more than run out halfway through. I'll just give these a quick wash. I bought 2 of these packs of plum tomatoes. Again, I don't think I'll need a full 2 packs, but give those a quick wash as well. I'm also going to put some leek in mine. It's not traditional, I don't think, but I fancied a kind of onion flavour in there, and I thought leeks would probably be quite a nice way of getting that in there. Also a bit of sweetness as well. So I'm going to take off the outer layer. I'm going to do the courgettes and the tomatoes on the mandolin. Leek is a bit more delicate, a bit more fragile, so I think I'll cut that by hand. With this dish, if you can find different types of squashes, feel free to use anything you like. I think the recipe, the original, uses summer squash, I want to say. For whatever reason, the availability of things like that in the UK is not great, or at least at the Sainsbury's I went to. I thought about putting aubergine in. I don't really like it, if I'm honest. So we're just going to slice up some of the stuff and then we can start arranging it and figure out how much we need. Got my oven at 150°C, about 300 Fahrenheit. That's the temperature we're going to be cooking everything at. With the leek, I want to try and keep it as thin as I can and try and keep them in rounds, which I don't think is going to be very successful, if I'm honest. Maybe I should have just gone for shallots instead, you know, like a banana shallot. Although that said, I don't think I saw them in the shop. If you want it to look very neat and precise, you want to try and keep your veg all the same size, same diameter. The amount of leeks I've done so far. Courgette next. I'm going to take off the base. I've got my mandolin set on the thickest slice, so we'll see what that's like. Yeah, I think that'll do. If you haven't got a mandolin, you can do it obviously by hand, or if you've got a food processor with a slicing blade, a grater that's got a slicing edge on it. So you've got a couple of options. But I've had this mandolin well over 20 years, so they're a good little investment. The tomatoes, I think I'm going to do them straight onto my plate. I think that's going to make it a bit easier. These tomatoes aren't the crispest. Yeah, I think I'll take them down as far as I can with the mandolin, and then the last bits I'll do by hand. So I'm going to take the paper off, but I'm going to keep it to the side because I'm going to put that back on the top. I'm going to take some of the sauce, brush it on. So I just want to get kind of nice even layer on top of the potatoes. And now I have to figure out the best way of doing this. I might make a few kind of shorter stacks in my hand kind of thing, and then put the stacks into the tin. So the dish it's fairly simple. I mean, perhaps even easy. It's just a bit fiddly and a bit time consuming. And then with the tomatoes, if you see any that have got kind of messed up edges, you just hide those. Nobody needs to know. The untidy ends all to one side. So we've got something like that. And then we'll tuck this in like that. And hopefully that'll stay up on its own. And then just repeat until we've filled the whole tin. So it is going to take a while. This will be a nice little dish to make with a podcast and a beer, something you can take your time over. You might just have to fiddle around with it a little bit just to get it to conform into the circle. If you get any that are very uneven and then some tiny bits, just make a whole one. Yay! I've cut some more tomato and I've made them a little bit thinner because I've just got a bit of a fear that I'm going to run out of tomato. So that is the first ring done. Now we just need to repeat in there. Yeah, so this is going to be a little bit of a nightmare trying to get it in. So I think what I'm going to do is almost have more like a spiral there. So then try and fill that space and kind of just finessing as best I can. Yeah, I think that might do. Put that paper back on, and that's going to stop it browning too quickly because it'll keep the steam trapped in. In the end, I used about half of the leek, but I've still got tons left. I wouldn't bother with the leek. It's really annoying because it falls apart. So maybe use very small onions if you can find them. I used 2.5 of the courgettes, and I ended up using all 10 of the tomatoes, but as you can see for the amount of ends there are, you know, definitely buy more than you think you're going to need. I'm just going to have a look at the cooking instructions on that Byaldi, because I just don't understand why it takes so long. The cooking instructions say cook for 1 hour and 45 minutes covered, then take the paper off and do another 25 minutes until the top is browned. I can't imagine vegetables taking that long, because they're not hard, they're not potatoes or carrots or anything, they're all fairly soft veg. I think I might do 45 minutes and then I'll have a look. I'm going to tuck an extra bit of courgette in the middle and then I'll pull that out and see what it looks like. Plus the potatoes are still fairly hot, so they're going to be getting heat from the underneath as well, so that's going to reduce the cooking time as well. I hope so, because I'm going to be late tonight. So the dish is more or less done, I think. Everything is cooked through. Maybe it would benefit from a bit longer, but it's 7:20 and I was supposed to be at my friend's house at 7. One of the concerns I had with doing it in a tin is getting it out of it. Like, is this whole thing just going to collapse when I unclip the sides? Because it's one of these type, it's a springform pan. I'm not really sure what's going to happen when I release the tension. And ideally, I could probably do with letting it cool for a good 15 minutes before trying this. But, okay, well, there's no instant collapse, which is an amazing sign. It's very, very juicy. So you can see, look, this big pool of juice there. But that's from the tomatoes, I'd say. Probably courgettes as well, but mostly tomatoes. You can see a nice layer of potato there. And then we've got the veggies on top. I just walked away to get a plate and it is starting to sag out the sides. I think to get it in the distinct layers the way I want it, like potato and then veg on top, it's probably going to need to be cooled all the way down, then sliced, and then possibly pop it in the air fryer in the oven just to heat it up again. If you're not so bothered about having the very defined slices, do it in a dish like that, you know, kind of a Pyrex bowl, something like that. After the 45 minutes, I had a look. I picked up that piece of courgette that the extra one was stuck in. Everything was softened, so I thought, right, well, I'm just going to take the paper off and then put it in for half an hour. And then after about 10 minutes, I looked at it again and thought, it looks very anemic. I looked at the recipe again, and the only thing it says is to, before putting it in the oven, sprinkle on some chopped garlic and thyme. And I thought, but even that's not going to do anything to the appearance. So I brushed on some olive oil, which has given it a nice bit of shine and will help a little bit with colour. But let's dive in. So I'm going to go potatoes first. It's tricky to get them in focus, but to the eye, you can see the layers softly. Let's have a go. I mean, it's potatoes and butter, but as I hoped, it's absorbed the flavour from that sauce layer and the veg. So it's got a really nice kind of peppery umami flavour on top of the potato goodness and the veg themselves. Very simple, very light. Still got some of the sauce left over. I'd maybe even suggest mix a load of olive oil into that and brush some of that on, maybe 20 minutes. 15-20 minutes before you take out the oven. Don't get me wrong, it's hot courgettes and tomato. It tastes nice. It tastes like, you know, fresh vegetables, but it needs a bit extra. The thyme and the garlic sprinkled on would add a little bit of something, but it just needs more zhuzhing up. It did say balsamic vinegar in the recipe, but balsamic's very domineering. And I think falling back on something like that, not ideal, because all you taste then is balsamic vinegar. As a starting point though, it's good. That sauce is really nice in the middle. Like the bottom edges of the veg that were in contact with the sauce are stunning. And I keep getting little pops of the Camembert, which is really good. I think it does need a bit longer. I think that would help a tiny bit, just develop a bit more flavour on the courgettes more than anything else, because the tomatoes are kind of nicely roasted, but it still needs flavour on top of it. I mean, I think the thyme and the garlic would help. I just didn't fully read through the recipe properly enough times, so I kind of missed that delicious meal. Yes. If you'd like lots more vegan recipe ideas, I've got all kinds of different videos, from snacks to big stick to your ribs kind of grub and cakes. Like this video and subscribe to the channel. Tap the bell icon if you want to be alerted as soon as a new one's published. Then while you're waiting for the next one, have a look at this.